Joe, do you smell that? No, not what the Rock is cooking, but do you smell that what's in the air right now?
Stop it with this. Stop. You really think that? Are you just trolling the Oregon fans? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, can I be real with you? No, I'm not. It's not that I think Oregon's going to lose. I have a massive concern with them going into this game against Oregon State. Would you like me to explain?
Go ahead.
Ashton Jeanty last week, really, we just talked about, quote unquote, pushing your shit in. Boise State with Ashton Jeanty last week went absolutely insane on Oregon. They were in a dogfight 2 weeks ago against Idaho. No, Idaho, but you get my drift. I look at Jam Griffin, I look at Anthony Hankerson, and I start asking myself, Joe, 2 weeks ago when Oregon State played Idaho State, the score is 38-15, and people are like, oh, okay, good win. No, you got to go watch the game because, Joe, they ran for over 400 yards on Idaho State. They ran the football in today's era with a running clock for 400 yards. They legitimately, on the line of scrimmage, on the offensive line, and with both of those running backs, have been going downhill and knocking people's teeth in the dirt. Then, this past week, I have Boise State, who comes in against Oregon, and it's a field goal game at the buzzer for Oregon to win it. You want to talk about, hey, man, you got to prove us wrong on something? Yeah, you got to. And by the way, this is a rivalry game. So, Joe, 400 yards against any opponent, SCS or not, is highly impressive. And then last week I got Oregon getting their stuff kicked in.
I'm not gonna. They played an FCS opponent, Blake. You're not gonna allow that. There is a huge, enormous difference between Idaho and Idaho State. For anyone who doesn't know the FCS world, there is a massive, massive difference in the quality of those teams.
400 yards rush.
It's impressive, but I do not think that Oregon is on upset watch. I really do not think that is going to happen this week. I haven't seen from the first 2 weeks, like I said in the open, I have not seen a team that has shown like they're wildly overhyped and they've got a bunch of deficiencies that were exposed by lower tier opponents. I saw a team that has elite playmakers and a quality quarterback that has offensive line chemistry issues and that just had trouble tackling a guy that's going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. It's great that Oregon State is having the success running the ball and that Griffin and Hankerson both had huge games against Idaho State.
They did against San Diego State too. So pick whichever one you want.
I just don't think that is comparable. And I come back to that. I think that, I come back to that Oregon in week 3, Dan Lanning is a good coach. He is a great coach. He is trying to do everything that he can to get his team right. South Carolina has proven that what a week can do. A week can really change things. That was what Beamer said, that look what we can change in a week. 2 weeks of time of realizing what your deficiencies are and working on them and coming out focused against your biggest rival, I don't think that they're going to mess around. I really don't.
I'm putting them on upset alert because you're going to have to prove to me after what you did last week on Boston College. Now, I haven't picked the game yet. We're talking about this on a Monday, so I haven't picked anybody for this game yet. I look at this, though, and say to myself, Joe, I don't care what anybody tells me because when I look at Oregon State and I look at what Boise State literally did last week on the road, by the way, they had inefficient quarterback play. The Maddox kid for Boise State was so inefficient that anybody, and I tweeted this out to you, I was like, what if Taylor Green was at Boise State still and we didn't have the portal? Oregon is losing that football game. Oregon will lose that football game if Taylor Green is still on that team. They had a walk-on kid that cannot throw a forward pass. When I look at Giovanni McCoy, when I look at him.
Who's from Idaho,
what is he? Efficient. So I got a running game at Oregon at the current moment that doesn't seem like they can stop anybody. They couldn't stop a bloody nose with a tampon at the current moment. Ashton Genty literally just showed you this, and I got two backs that have gone off and a quarterback that is serviceable more than what they face in Boise State.
Ashton Genty is such an exception for what they're going to see this year, and I think that where
Joe,
their performance against Ashton Genty is more relevant for when we're talking about Ohio State.
Okay, well, hold on.
Two elite running backs. Let me finish. When they have two elite running backs, that is incredibly important. It's not applicable in this situation. Oregon is much better than Oregon State, and they're just playing 2 weeks of bad football.
Joe,
they don't belong on upset watch.
Were there not runs that Ashton Genty hit the hole that it was designed to run the football through, and he did not get touched? That happened multiple times.
There were plenty of times, too, where he created a ton of room for himself because he is the best running back in the country.
Okay, that is fine. But let's not act like that I think it was the fourth quarter tying score. When he goes in and scores, he's untouched. He's untouched. And I want to bring this up. What happened 2 years ago with Oregon State and Oregon? How did Oregon get beat?
It was running the football. They had Damian Martinez at the time.
Okay. Well, that's fair. But I look at that running back room and I look at that offensive line and say, Joe,
I think it's fine.
Hold on. As a former O lineman, when you run for 400 yards against air, okay, I don't care who your opponent is. You better be prepared for them to line up and a slugfest is about to happen. There is one thing that I think you're right on. I think you're right on in the sense of they've just played really bad football the last 2 weeks. But, Joe, I mean, we're talking about a field goal game against Boise that you're walking off in and celebrating against. I mean, are we 1,000%? And you talked about Genty and guys like Hankerson and Griffin not being on the caliber of him. That's fine. But you know what else Oregon State has that Boise State didn't? More efficient quarterback play. Joe, the truth is they're getting more efficient quarterback play right now, Oregon State is, than what they did under DJU. That is a fact.
But they also have not played anybody. I really like Giovanni McCoy, and I really liked him at Idaho. He's a great player, but they also still have not played anybody. So we don't have enough context to know how good Oregon State is. Oregon was tested by what I have said. I have said this a million times over during the offseason. Boise State is the best G5 team. They are the best G5 team, and they played them really freaking close. They did. Way closer than they should have. It should have been a multi-score victory for Oregon. But that's still a really good team. I think that Boise State's a better team than Oregon State. Far better team.
Stop with the far better team shit.
They're basically in the same conference.
Well, they can't throw the football.
Doesn't matter. They play really good defense, and they have the best running back in the country.
Okay.
Both are better than Oregon State.
17 to 40. Oregon couldn't get off the field on third down. These aren't things that you fix over 1 week.
I think that when you're locked in and you're focused and you're trying to beat your rival, I think that some of these things.
Okay,
I'm not saying that this is going to be like a 30-point blowout, but they don't deserve to be on upset watch. They don't.
So then what would be your final score?
I say they win by 20.
No, they're going to run the football too
30
much.
to 10.
You sleeping on this game, man. I'm telling you, you better watch yourself.
I really don't think this is going to be an upset.
Hey,
game.
let me ask you a question. Over under of how many DMs I get from Oregon fans in the next 48 hours.
You're going to get a shitload. You're going to get blasted. I mean, there are people already cooking you in the
Yeah, you know, so I'm just going to throw this out there too, very quickly. Oregon, I stuck up for you all last year and you failed me. I'm not going forward again.
It's a new year. This is why I always change teams that I support. You should never just stick with the same teams.
I do think Oregon will get it done, though. If you put a gun to my head, okay, I think that they will get it done. I think that they'll overcome and they'll get it done. But it does – let me tell you this. I'm worried for them in this game. I really am, man.
I don't think that they should be.
All right. Well, you're just flat out wrong.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.